I just got through watching the Senate confirmation hearing for Scott Pruitt. He is up for the EPA administrator job. I gotta tell you, just based on this particular hearing, if this guy is not in the pocket of big oil, nobody is, okay? Various senators, and again, I looked at the whole thing, and every last single one of the Republican senators were trying to give this guy cover, which obviously that's to be expected. Senator Barrasso, who's the chairman of the committee, every time one of the Democratic senators nailed this guy, he would stop and read some kind of a letter or statement in support of this guy. So, you know, that is what it is. But this guy is terrible. He's terrible. Cory Booker hit him up on the cause of asthma and how many people, children actually, in his state, which 1 out of 10 children in the state of Oklahoma has asthma, and it's caused by air pollution. And he was asked if he ever filed a lawsuit against any of the companies that were actually polluting the air. The answer was no. He also, according to the senator from, I believe, Oregon, and there actually were two senators that brought this point up. These mega companies have this guy in their pocket, and what they did was they issued letters to him addressed, well, actually, they sent excuse me, they sent letters to him which were addressed to the EPA fighting against various regulations. What this guy did as the Attorney General of Oklahoma was to take those letters, put it on his letterhead, add a few words, and I do mean a few, okay, and then send them off to the EPA. So he was questioned as to, well, was he representing the people of Oklahoma or was he representing the companies? And he tried to give some bullshit answer about representing the companies. So then the senator turned around and asked this guy, who else have you consulted with? Because in his opening remarks, he said that he represented all the constituents of Oklahoma, including the people. This guy's a piece of work. Now, I'm going to play two clips from you that I believe are really relevant. One clip is from the new senator from California, Kamala Harris, and she basically went up one side of this guy and down the other, and I thought it was relevant. And then I'm going to give you the clip from Bernie Sanders' questions. Here we go.
As an Attorney General, I know as a former Attorney General in California that we as Attorneys General have several duties, which include representing our clients, state agencies, and also the discretion and power to initiate lawsuits in our independent capacity as Attorneys General. Would you agree with that?
Some states provide more latitude than others.
Does your state?
Our state is not provided constitutionally as much authority as other states.
Have you never exercised your independent capacity as Attorney General to bring a legal action?
Senator, I would have to know more specifics about what you're referring to, but in response to your question, it does...
Have you ever exercised your independent capacity as the Attorney General of your state to initiate a legal action? Yes or no?
The litigations that we've engaged in largely have been in consultation with agencies that...
Largely. So you have also exercised your independent capacity as the Attorney General of your state. Is that correct?
I may have, Senator. I don't...
You don't know if you have or not? You've been Attorney General for your state for almost 7 years. Is that correct?
Approaching that, yes. 6 years, actually.
And I've read that you have initiated, and it has been mentioned before, 14 lawsuits in your independent capacity as the Attorney General of Oklahoma, and apparently 7 of those cases have been resolved, 6 of which you have lost. My question is, I hear that you are a lover of baseball. What would your batting average then be?
It was generally about 300, which is pretty good for a second baseman.
Yeah, my calculation is it's 142. Moving on, would you agree that as attorneys who have the responsibility for doing the work of justice, in particular as an Attorney General, that we make decisions based on propriety and impropriety? We make decisions based on what is not only an actual conflict, but what is an appearance of conflict. Would you agree that's important?
I believe that's important, Senator.
Okay, and so on this issue of whether or not you would be recused if you are nominated and actually voted in as the administrator of the EPA, you have said that you will recuse yourself from the cases your office has been involved with if directed to do that. Do you agree that you also have the discretion to recuse yourself from those cases?
I believe, Senator, the rules of professional conduct, in addition to the review that OGE...
Do you believe that you have the discretion to recuse yourself from the cases that you were involved with as
It's
Attorney
actually stronger
General?
than that, Senator. I actually have an obligation in those instances as directed by Ethics Council, and that's the reason I indicated earlier.
Independent of any direction from Ethics Council, do you agree you have the discretion to recuse yourself from those cases?
I believe that it's important to maintain...
I'm asking about whether or not you actually have the discretion, the power to recuse yourself. Do you disagree or agree with that?
Further, there's a discretion to recuse.
Clearly. You're familiar
I
with the
just-
Clean Air Act, yes?
I'm sorry, Senator?
You are familiar with the Clean Air Act?
I am.
And as you may know, Section 209, Subdivision B of the Clean Air Act recognizes California's authority to issue air pollution standards for new motor vehicles that go above and beyond federal standards. The EPA has historically recognized California's authority to issue new motor vehicle pollution standards that go above and beyond federal standards. In your opening statement, you write, it is not EPA's mission to be against sectors of industry in general or against particular states. Will you commit then to upholding that same standard and recognizing California's authority to issue its own new motor vehicle air pollution standards?
You know, Senator, as you indicated, California was actually regulating those standards before the EPA was actually created, which is why the California waiver exists under
Do
statute.
you agree to uphold that same standard that has been held by your previous
I agree to review that as each administrator before me has. It's been granted at times.
You agree to uphold it? Reviewing and upholding are two different points.
Senator, as you know, administrators in the past have not granted the waiver, and in fact have granted the waiver. That's a review process that will be conducted.
What is your intention, sir?
I don't know without going through the process to determine that, Senator, and one would not want to presume the outcome.
In the 14 cases that have been previously mentioned, in each of those cases, regulated companies were also a party to your suits. Is that correct?
In some instances, yes.
In most of them. Can you name a few instances in which you have filed a lawsuit in your independent capacity as Attorney General against a corporate entity for violating state or federal pollution laws?
Senator, I have a list here that's been provided.
Can you name them, please?
Sure. There's a list that has been...
Can you name one?
Yes, the first is the Mayhard Egg Farm involving a CAFO situation and cleanup of a large hen operation that affected water quality.
Did you file a lawsuit in that case, sir?
I did, Senator.
Okay.
Okay, let me stop him right here. He just lied, okay? He just lied, and I'll provide the proof at the end of this particular segment with Kamala Harris, but he just lied. This guy has never filed a lawsuit of the manner that she just mentioned.
And what was the outcome of that case?
We received a good outcome against them.
And the name of that entity was what?
Mayhard Egg Farm.
And can you name any other cases where you have actually filed a lawsuit against a corporate entity for violating federal pollution laws?
In fact, that case was brought in conjunction with the EPA, and I want to address something, Senator, earlier. When you say independent capacity, those cases that you referred to, the list of cases, were as an extension of the DEQ in the state of Oklahoma, an extension of agencies at the state level that had authority granted to them by this body. That we were.
And I understand that role as a former Attorney General, but that is you representing your client. I'm asking about your independent capacity as the Attorney General of your state. Let's move on. On the issue of Mercury.
I would suggest that the senator's time has expired in
Thank
terms
you.
of moving on.
All right, let me stop it right there. This guy just straight out lied, okay? He did not file that particular lawsuit that he made mention of, okay? It was the prior Attorney General that had filed that lawsuit, not him. All right, here's the proof, which is also being put into the congressional record presented by the, what's the terminology? The minority leader of this committee. I'm sorry, it's called the ranking member. The ranking member of this committee, Senator Carper, is going to put into the record the fact that this guy lied. Here we go.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request. I'd like to submit for the record. And this sort of in response to a question raised by Senator Harris and Mr. Pruitt in his response to her question on whether he had ever filed a lawsuit against a corporate entity for violating state or federal pollution apparently was not correct. I want to just submit for the record a list of cases that have been active under Mr. Pruitt's leadership. It notes which ones were started by his predecessor, and it shows that the case in which he mentioned in his exchange with Senator Harris, I think it was the egg case, was it Mahard case, actually was initiated not by Mr. Pruitt, but by his predecessor. Without objection.
All right, so he just turned around and got busted for trying to take credit for filing a case that he didn't actually file. It did go on during his jurisdiction or time in office, but he didn't actually file the case. Okay, so Ms. Harris apparently got up under his skin. Now, I want to play the clip from for you for Bernie Sanders when he got on this guy, and trust me, you will enjoy this one. Hold on one sec. Okay, here comes Bernie Sanders, and I mean, he absolutely nailed this guy. Here we go.
Senator Sanders, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for being late, but we were at a hearing with Congressman Price, who is the nominee for HHS, and perhaps not a great idea to have important nominating hearings at exactly the same time. So I apologize for not being here earlier.
Yeah, and Bernie's right, and the Democrats jumped up and down about this one. The Republicans are trying to ram all of these particular nominees through by having at least 4 going on at the same time. The only guy that didn't get a break was Tillerson, and because he got his first, and then there was supposed to be a second round of questioning, which they canceled. And then, and I'm sorry, the one that really didn't get the break was Jeff Sessions. He had one round of questioning on himself, and then there was a second day where actual witnesses were called to testify and statements were read. So, you know, they're trying to make it as difficult as possible for all of these guys to get in here on this guy and all of the other nominees. Now, some of them are not going to have any problem whatsoever, but this guy for the EPA is the wrong guy. Here's Bernie Sanders.
My office has received a great deal of comments from people in the state of Vermont, which takes environmental protection very seriously, as well as from all over the country. And the fear is that the nomination of Mr. Pruitt is a nomination designed to protect the fossil fuel industry and not the environment. I would like to ask Mr. Pruitt a question. As I understand it, earlier in this hearing, you said that Mr. Trump was wrong in suggesting and stating over and over again that climate change was a quote-unquote hoax. Is that in fact the case?
That is correct, Senator.
Okay. Let me ask you this. As you may know, some 97% of scientists who have written articles for peer-reviewed journals have concluded that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. Do you believe that climate change is caused by the emission, by carbon emissions, by human activity?
Senator, as I indicated, you weren't in here during my opening statement, but as I indicated in my opening statement, the climate is changing, and whether human activity contributes to that in some manner.
In some manner.
Yes, sir.
97% of the scientists who wrote articles in peer-reviewed journals believe that human activity is the fundamental reason we are seeing climate change. You disagree with that?
I believe the ability to measure with precision the degree of human activity's impact on the climate is subject to more debate on whether the climate is changing or whether human activity contributes to it.
Well, you are not certain. The vast majority of scientists are telling us that if we do not get our act together and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, there is a real question as to the quality of the planet that we are going to be leaving our children and our grandchildren. So you are applying for a job as administrator for the EPA to protect our environment. Overwhelming majority of scientists say we have got to act boldly, and you're telling me that there needs to be more debate on this issue and that we should not be acting boldly.
No, Senator, as I've indicated, the climate is changing, and human activity.
But you haven't told me
impacts that.
why you think the climate is changing.
Well, Senator, the job of the administrator is to carry out the statutes as passed by this body. And to
Why is the climate changing?
Senator, in response to the CO2 issue, the EPA administrator is constrained by statutes.
I'm asking you a personal opinion.
My personal opinion is immaterial
Oh, really?
to the job of.
You are going to be the head of the agency to protect the environment, and your personal feelings about whether climate change is caused by human activity and carbon emissions is immaterial?
Senator, I've acknowledged to you that the human activity impacts the climate.
Impacts.
Yes.
Scientific community doesn't tell us it impacts. They say it is the cause of climate change. We have to transform our energy system. Do you believe we have to transform our energy system in order to protect the planet for future
I
generations?
believe the EPA has a very important role at regulating the emissions.
You didn't answer my
CO2.
question. Do you believe we have to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to do what the scientific community is telling us in order to make sure that this planet is healthy for our children and grandchildren?
Senator, I believe that the administrator has a very important role to perform in regulating CO2.
Can you tell me, as I think all of us know, Oklahoma has been subjected to a record-breaking number of earthquakes. Scientists in Oklahoma, or scientists say that Oklahoma is almost certain to have more earthquakes with heightened risk of a large quake probable to endure for a decade, and that the cause of this is fracking. Can you point me, picking up on Senator Harris's discussion with you, can you point me to any opinion that you wrote, any enforcement actions you took against the companies that were injecting waste fracking water?
Senator, let me say I'm very concerned about the connection between activity in Oklahoma.
And therefore, you must have taken action. I guess, can you tell me who you fined for doing this, if you're very concerned?
The Corporation Commission in Oklahoma is vested with the jurisdiction, and they've actually acted on that.
And you have made public statements expressing your deep concern about this.
We have worked with, through our...
You have made public statements. You're in a state which is seeing a record-breaking number of earthquakes. You're the Attorney General. Obviously, you have stood up and said you will do everything you can to stop future earthquakes as a result of fracking.
Senator, I've acknowledged that I'm concerned about...
You acknowledge that you are concerned. Your state is having a record number of... Well, if that's the kind of administrator for the EPA, your state's having a record-breaking number of earthquakes, you acknowledge you are concerned. If that's the kind of EPA administrator you will be, you're not going to get my vote.
Burnham Bernie, kick his ass. Just in case you had any doubt that this guy doesn't give a damn about the regular citizens, as I indicated prior, specifically children getting asthma in his state, here's Cory Booker going against this guy.
Good morning, Mr. Pruitt.
Good morning, Senator Booker.
I have a letter that I read that you sent to the committee last year, and you said that the Oklahoma Attorney General, you said, I am responsible for protecting the welfare of Oklahoma citizens. I assume that's still correct, and you believe that?
Yes, Senator.
And during the past 6 years in pursuit of that, If you look at the record of the lawsuits you filed against the EPA, you joined or filed 14 lawsuits against the EPA challenging clean air and clean water rules, yes?
We've been involved in multiple pieces of litigation, Senator.
Yeah, but I'm looking at specifically 14, and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put those 14 lawsuits into the record where you specifically challenged the EPA on air quality. And let me just go through some of those.
Without objection.
Thank you, sir. To refresh your recollection, you filed 2 lawsuits challenging the EPA mercury and air toxics standards. You filed a lawsuit challenging the EPA's 2015 National Ambient Air Quality Standards for ozone. You filed 4 lawsuits challenging the EPA's Clean Power Plan. You have sued to challenge the EPA's 111B standards for carbon dioxide emissions from new power plants. And you also sued to challenge the EPA's federal implementation plan for Oklahoma under the regional haze rule. You're familiar with those, I imagine.
Yes, Senator.
And you filed a lawsuit challenging the EPA cross-state air pollution rule, something in New Jersey we're very concerned with. And are you aware that that rule, which you lost in that suit, scientists estimate that that alone prevents 400,000 asthma attacks nationally each year? Are you aware of those estimations?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Senator. May I offer?
I appreciate your promotion, Judge. Let me continue, Mr. Brewer. I don't have much time.
Okay.
So each of these lawsuits that I just went through and that we analyzed, all of them challenge attempts by the EPA to reduce air pollution. In all of them except one, you filed those lawsuits joining with polluting companies that were also suing the EPA. And so in addition to filing those lawsuits with some of the polluting companies, or at least one that has now been specifically mentioned by two of my colleagues, you used substantial portions of the letters from those companies, put them on your official Attorney General letterhead. And what was sort of surprising to me is that when you've been asked about this in the public, you basically represented that that's actually called representative government in my view of the world. Your testimony here says that you were representing industry, you were representing the polluters. And so with all of these lawsuits you filed and with all of these letters like this one written to the EPA on behalf of the industries that are causing the pollution, it seems clear to me that obviously the fact pattern on representing polluters is clear, that you've worked very hard on behalf of these industries that have their profits externalized, negative externalities are their pollution. And so I just have a question for you specifically about the children of Oklahoma. Do you know how many kids in Oklahoma roughly have asthma?
I do not, Senator.
Well, according to data published by the very nonpartisan group, the American Lung Association, more than 111,000 children in Oklahoma, which is more than 10%, more than 1 in 10 of all the kids in Oklahoma have asthma. That's one of the highest asthma rates in the entire United States of America. Now, this is a crisis, similar data for where I was mayor, and I can tell you firsthand the devastating impacts that kids with asthma has on children and families, affecting their economic well-being, parents who have to watch their children struggle to breathe, people that have to miss work rushing their kids to the hospital. 1 in 10 kids having a disease, missing school, is a significant problem. And so if you've been writing letters on behalf of polluting industries, I want to ask you, how many letters did you write to the EPA about this health crisis? If this is representative government, did you represent those children? I want to know what actions you've taken in the past 6 years in your capacity as protector of the welfare of Oklahoma citizens to protect the welfare of those 111,000 children. Did you ever let any of them write letters on your letterhead to the EPA, and did you even file one lawsuit on behalf of those kids to reduce the air pollution in your state and help them to have a healthy life?
Senator, I've actually provided a list of cases to the chairman with respect to enforcement steps we've taken in multiple pieces of environmental litigation. But let me say to you, with respect to cross-state air pollution and some of the cases you referred to, the state has to have an interest before it can bring those cases, as you know. You can't just bring a lawsuit if you don't have standing, if there's not been some injury to the state of Oklahoma. In each of those cases,
my time's expired, but if I could just say, injury, clearly asthma is triggered and caused by air pollutants. Clearly there is an air pollution problem. And the fact that you have not brought suits at any of the level in which you've represented the industries that are causing the pollution is really problematic when you're going to sit in a position that is nationally supposed to be affecting this reality. And asthma in our country is the #1 reason why children in America, health reason, why children in America miss school. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much. I submit for the record.
All right, that was enough for me. Obviously, this guy is, as I indicated earlier, this guy's in the pocket of big oil, and there's nothing that anybody's going to be able to do to get him out of it. He's the wrong choice for this particular job. Now, again, as I stated at the beginning of the clip, I only put in clips from the Democrats who were the ones actually pressing this guy. The Republicans were all bending over and playing nice with this guy. Not one of them asked any type of a penetrating question. They were all making statements supporting this guy. Now, I'm going to put the actual clip from C-SPAN so that anybody who wants to go through and watch the whole thing, and it was 2 hours and 45 minutes, you're welcome to it. Hopefully, though I'm not having a lot of hope, that they are going to kick this guy because, again, he is, if there's anybody who shouldn't get this particular job, it's him.